Hello and welcome to our immune system workshop. I'd just like to introduce myself as a new member of Wellspring. I'm very glad to be here and to meet all of you. I had chiropractic care when I was super young and hadn't had any more until, pretty recently. And I actually last week ended up getting fairly sick. And I told Dr. Heather and I had an adjustment right away. And I actually felt great the next day, and then I had a 3-day weekend and no adjustment, and I went downhill once again. And then I got my adjustment on Monday, and I took the advice about having some certain supplements that were able to sort of help boost my immune system, and here I am, energized today on a Wednesday. So I would just like to be the living proof that this does in fact work, and I would like to welcome Dr. Heather.
All right. Thank you so much, Lizzie, and welcome to our team.
Thank you.
All right, well, greetings, everybody. And wow, it's flu season. We keep hearing that. It's flu season, it's cold and flu season. And I will tell you that my story with chiropractic actually starts with strep throat. That when I was 13 years old, I got a case of strep throat, and my dad was on his way to becoming a chiropractor, came home on vacation, checked me, gave me my first chiropractic adjustment, and 2 hours later I was swallowing much more easily. And it made such an imprint on me at 13 years old that I realized that I wanted to become a chiropractor from that experience. And what I realized when we went to the pediatrician and he looked in my mouth and he didn't get excited when he heard that chiropractic was what worked instead of the penicillin, then it really cemented into me that I wanted to be the one that was going to help people understand the natural approaches to health. And so that's why I love this Body Signals workshop on the immune system, because it's really where I got my start with my career, my passion in life. And I want to also just update you on what is actually happening this time of the year. Like we call it cold and flu season. It's not. The flu virus is present the whole year. It's in Australia in the summer and it's their flu season. It turns out it's not cold and flu season, it's stress and sugar season. When I think back to as a youngster at 13 years old and thinking about how I might want to help people, and then as the years go by and I see what's happening in our community and their health, even just this topic about the flu, even the flu, we're getting sicker and sicker in that category of the flu. In fact, the CDC actually has stats. We know that last year we had the highest rate of flu vaccine that we've ever had. We also had a very high rate of flu. And so what we're actually watching happening is that as we're trying to manipulate from the outside our immune systems and trying to prevent things artificially, we actually seem to be causing more and more flu, and it's more severe. And now there's research that shows that if you've had multiple flu vaccines, your chances and likelihood of getting a more severe case of the flu is going up. That's what the data is starting to show us. So why aren't we hearing that on the evening news? But that's important information for us. So tonight, we are going to unpack this whole topic of the immune system, and we're going to learn how you can boost your immune system naturally in 21 days. So everyone's going to go home with their action plan. Does that sound good? Okay. All right. So I'm going to just update you on myself with the season of the year. So I always, every year, I commit myself to, I am skipping the flu season. I'm not going to get the flu. I know what to do, and I do really, really well. And I didn't get the flu this year, but I did get a little cold. And this is what happened. I'm staying strong. And then about a week and a half ago, I was on a bus trip for 8 hours to Pennsylvania for my daughter's basketball tournament. And I'm sitting the whole way there. I'm sitting in bleachers the whole time watching the tournament. The food was actually pretty good. They fed us well. It was good quality food. It was a Waldorf school tournament, so they're conscious about that. And so I'm feeling like I'm strong, I'm doing great. And at one point, one of our players fell while she was playing. You could hear her head hit the floor and thunk. And I jump up from my seat and run over with my homeopathic remedies and ready to check her to see what's going on. Well, I jumped up so fast, I tripped over somebody's foot that was sticking out from the bleachers, and I go flying and I land on my hip. Boom! Right? So here's the player, boom. There's the audience member, boom, right? And here I am trying to help, and I'm like flat. So I just jump up immediately. I was fine. I ran. I got to her. Turns out she's okay, which is great news. And I thought, okay, I probably jarred my spine there, but I feel okay with it. I feel okay. Okay, maybe a little bruise right there. It's probably okay. Then on the bus trip home, cold weather, no heat on the bus for 8 hours. Yeah, that taxed my immune system. So when we added those two things together, okay, then what happens? I get back on Sunday night. On Monday, I'm starting to feel like, feels like something's going on with my immune system. Tuesday afternoon, I had a high fever, went to bed, did the infrared sauna, like piled on my nutrients the way I did, got adjusted. Wednesday morning, I woke up and feeling pretty good, and I had a great day on Wednesday. So in 24 hours, I went through it. And so now there's a little cleanup that's still happening. But if you're going to do the cold or the flu, that's the healthy version of it. So we're going to cover some topics so you really understand what's happening when something like a cold or a flu happens. But we're going to also touch on the other aspects about the immune system because it's a broad topic. And this is cold and flu season, so people think immune system, they think acute illnesses. But I want to just touch into immune system, how it impacts everything in our life. All right, so when we think about the cold and the flu, the flu season, how big is that of a problem in our country? It turns out that between 5 and 20% of Americans are going to get the flu every year. Between 5 and 20%, pretty high. We're going to spend about $10 billion on managing the flu, $10 billion. And that's the direct costs, okay? But think about what happens when somebody in the family gets the flu. They're not feeling so good. Maybe they're out of work for a day or two. That could impact funds, but everybody's grumpy when they have the flu, so the rest of the family's bothered by it. Maybe they struggle through and they still show up at work. Then we have something called presenteeism, right? So employers, maybe you've heard this word, where people are sitting in their seats, but their productivity is down. So when you're sick with the flu, you might show up, but you're not going to be as productive as you would be. So there are those collateral costs to our country, even just from something like the flu. So why is it that this seems to happen this time of the year? Why is it that we call it flu season and it always is happening in the winter? And it's usually going to show up, the earliest is going to be kind of November after Halloween. Didn't we just call it sugar and stress and sugar season, right? So Halloween is where the first sugar burst shows up. That's followed by Thanksgiving, where we have that sugar burst. Then that's followed by Christmas with that sugar burst. And then we got New Year's Eve. And if you came to one of our talks talking about stress of the holidays, trying to manage it beforehand, try to recover from it, we talked about this peak that happens in December, January. And literally, Christmas and New Year's is the holiday red zone. It's when the most cardiac deaths occur every year. It peaks out at that time. So it's just a reminder to us. It's just the canary of the amount of stress we have at this time of the year. So we're stressed out. And finally, around about this time, I know Valentine's Day just came and went. That's another little sugar boost for us. But what happens is right around this time, we start to come out of the added stress of the holidays. Finally, maybe we got kids' vacation week is coming up for us next week, right? So people go on vacation and they get sick. Like they've been stressed, they go on vacation, and that's when they get sick, when they go on vacation. How does that work? Okay, your immune system, it's a very expensive system to run. And if we're stressed, actually we will shut down our immune system. We're going to learn that. And so what happens is when we're finally coming back into a rhythm again, when we finally have a little bit more energy, that's when the body says, okay, time to clean house now. Time to start dumping out those toxins that we couldn't get out before. And that's when you start to feel like crap and things fall apart. So it makes sense why this is happening this time of the year, because we've just come out of that holiday red zone and we're entering that stress and sugar season that it's the consequences of having lived through that. So when we talk about, getting sick, hey, anybody here want to get sick this season? No, right? Can you afford to get sick this season, right? No, right? So skipping the flu season, everybody up for that? Everybody here wants to do that? Yeah, exactly. So let's just unpack this. And to do this, it's really important that we understand the body signals, the symptoms that come up, and so that we can address them. Because our culture, what does our culture do when we have the flu? Take medication so you feel better. Take medication so you feel better. So mask it. Not necessarily helping your body be better or healthier, right? Our culture tends to just mask it and keep pushing on. Don't be a wuss. Show up for work, medicate your way so you can show up, right? That's what our cultural, that's what the theme of our culture is. So let's understand these body signals or symptoms that we have so we can actually do something about the cause of what it is and how to best approach it and deal with it. So this is the paradigm that I love to use of looking at the whole range of health, the health experience. We call it the illness-wellness continuum. And this came from a gold standard study where they studied a large population over time, and they watched what happened with their health over time, and they plotted people on this graph, someplace on the graph. So at one end we have people that are dying early, their health is so poor, and then we have at the other end robust levels of health, the highest levels of health, and we've got everything in between. And what they learned from the study is that everybody's going to be plotted somewhere on this continuum, and nobody's standing still. Everybody's going to be moving in one direction or the other. That's what they learned from the study when they followed people over time, is nobody was standing still. And when they looked at what would happen when they moved in one direction or the other, they found that this was what they called the neutral point, where there was no labeled symptom, no labeled disease, but it was really not robust health. So there was a difference between just not being sick and being really healthy. And they said that there were 3 zones here. There was the sick zone, there was the not sick zone, and there was the healthy zone. So I think that a lot of people today may be living in the not sick zone and calling it health. They're using the wrong definition of health, and they're in trouble, because if you're living right here and you're moving in this direction, you're moving towards early death. You're moving towards losing function. So the first thing they noticed was that signs were the first thing to show up, and then symptoms would show up. Who knows the difference between signs and symptoms? Okay, what's the difference?
A sign is not a symptom. You can't feel it, but you can
Measure it.
measure it.
Exactly, yeah. So a sign is something you can measure, but you may not feel it. The symptom is when you're feeling it. So by the time people were feeling the symptom, there would have been signs that would have showed up earlier to tell them they were headed in that direction. So the symptoms tell us what direction we're heading, but it's not, just because you have an absence of the symptom doesn't mean that you are healthy. That's what we learned from this study. Powerful. And so what we also learned is, again, everybody's moving in one direction or the other, and there's a momentum to it. There's a velocity to it. There's a speed that people are moving in one direction, and there's a length of time that they've been moving in that direction. So, like for me, I'm living at that robust health, and then I fall, jar my spine, subluxate my nervous system, and then I'm freezing cold for 8 hours and can't do anything about it, right? That taxed my system. So I went this way fast, but then I came back fast. Do you see? So there's a velocity and a momentum. So I had something that pushed me in this direction, then my body course corrected, did what it needed to do, and I'm back to being healthy again. However, watch out, because we use those words very freely about being healthy based on how we feel. Even I used it just then, and I caught myself, right? So there are people that will say, oh yeah, on Monday I was feeling good. On Tuesday I got sick and I wasn't healthy. On Wednesday I was still not healthy. On Thursday I was feeling better, and Friday I was healthy again. We use that all the time, right? It's part of our culture to use that. But what we're going to learn is we can't use how we feel to say how healthy we are. That's dangerous because we're using the wrong definition of health if we're doing that. Because if you're just using how you feel to tell you how healthy you are, then you're going to wait until the symptoms show up when you discover, oh, I'm not healthy. Do you see there's a difference there? So think about that. What is the early sign or what does it feel like in the early stages of heart disease? What does that feel like? There's 0 symptoms in the early stages of heart disease. And in fact, 51% of the people will die from their first heart attack with no other symptoms showing up. They don't even get a second chance. What does it feel like in the early stages of cancer? What does it feel like in the early stages of diabetes? How about what does a cavity feel like in the early stages? You don't feel anything. There's no symptom with it. So we need a better definition. Can we all agree? A better definition for health than how you feel. Yeah? Okay. So let's look at this. Let's start to understand body signals so that we can then learn from it. The Body Signals program, that's what we do every month. We have a different topic. That's why we call it the Body Signals program. And that's really what symptoms are. They're body signals. It's our body talking to us. And we need to learn how to speak body so that we can then respond appropriately. So the symptoms are the tip of the iceberg. And then there's all of the function that it's representing below it. And usually when the symptom shows up, it's a sign that there's something bigger that's happening underneath. And we better learn to understand that. So we're going to look at what do the symptoms of colds and flu tell us on what we need to do to reconcile that and get back on the track to health. And for some people that have been moving in the wrong direction for a long time, our first job is just to slow down the momentum in that direction and then turn the corner and start moving the other direction. Okay, so remember there is that velocity and momentum to it. Okay, so let's now move forward and look at the immune system and I want to challenge your thinking when it comes to this idea of being sick. So oftentimes we use that word, I just got sick. I got sick. And let's just look closely at it. First off, sickness is actually a part of health. Sickness is a part of health. So here's a concept I want you to consider. Think about the idea of darkness and light. Darkness and light. What is darkness? Is darkness a thing? Is this something that you could pick up, put in a box, and put in the closet if you don't like it? No. Can you kill darkness? Can you, can you reshape it? It's not a thing, is it? What is darkness? What is it? It's the absence of light. It's the absence of a thing. So if you don't like the darkness that you're having, what do you need to do? Add some light. All right? So sickness is not a thing. It's not a thing. It's the absence of a thing. Right? When we look at our illness-wellness continuum, sickness is at one end, health is at the other end, illness-wellness. Illness is not a thing. It's the absence of health. So if you don't like the sickness that you're having, if you think it's a thing that could be named that you could kill, then our current model of healthcare is going to make sense. Let's kill that germ. Let's kill that thing. But if you understand that it's the absence of something, then you just have to start asking yourself, what do I need to add here? And that body signal of a symptom, you can start to ask yourself, what do I need to add? What's missing that I need to add? Does that make sense, right? It's such an important discernment, and I want to challenge your thinking on that. So we don't get sick, we do sick. I have a colleague, Dr. James Chestnut. I love how he frames this. He says some people think that they get sick because of bad germs or bad genes or just bad luck. And it's not any of those things. It's bad behavior. It's the lifestyle choices that we're making that are going to move us in one direction or the other on that continuum. So if we are getting sick, what we have to do is we have to own up that we're actually doing sick. We're not getting sick, we're doing sick. And that, you can feel defeated by that, like, oh, I'm doing sick. But you can realize that if you you don't get healthy either. You do healthy. It's the same thing. So I want to inspire hope in you that if you can own that what you've been doing got you where you are, you were doing sick, you can now change that and start to do healthy. And you'll change the direction that you're heading. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Okay, so now let's take a look at this whole idea of a cold or the flu. So we have this immune system that if we do have a virus that shows up, something like that, we actually have a whole system in place that can muster up all of its teams of soldiers and armies. We can think of it as a defense system, right? And we look at this whole idea of our immune system, it's a defense system. It's not just a defense system, there's also this surveillance part of it. So if you think of our military and you think of there's the CIA and the FBI, there's the ones that are out there watching what's happening, there's the reconnaissance that happens, and then we target where the enemy is, where the problem is, where the microbe is, right? Follow me along with this, right? And then we have special forces that come out that are going to do their special jobs at addressing what that threat is. And it could be the Army or the Navy or the Air Force or the Marines. They all are trained differently, right? And then they come out with their special forces to address what the threat is. So first we have the surveillance to acknowledge what the threats are, and then we have the forces that come into play to address it. Our immune system is the same way. It's very complex, and we have one part of it that is watching what's going on and identifying what threats are, and then we have another part of it that comes in and targets it, and we'll have different parts of our immune system that we'll use at different points in time. So when we look at the immune system then, let's say that there's a flu virus that we're exposed to, a cold virus that we're exposed to. Our immune system is going to identify it, and then it's going to come in and it's going to send in the troops. And I promise you, when your immune system is identifying it, you don't feel any symptom. And then the troops come in and they start to rally, and now they are defeating that threat. And there's a lot of debris around that we need to then get rid of. It's getting rid of the debris, and it's when we're in the fight. But when we're in the beginning, when the virus is there, we don't feel a symptom. It's when we are engaged in the fight and we're fighting it, that's when the fever comes up. That's a fantastic strategy for the body to address that threat, that virus. Turn up the heat. And then you have all the cleanup parts of the immune system that will come and engulf and eat up that debris and escort it out of the body. And that's when we feel lousy. That's when we're coughing and our nose is running, right? So that's part of health. That's how we are getting healthy. That's how we are becoming healthy. That's our body becoming healthy when we feel like crap. So what happens in our culture is when we feel like crap, now we start to throw on the medications so we feel better. Let's take a medication so that turns the fever down. Oh wow, well that fever, that was there to try and take care of the threat, and now you've just turned it down so that you can feel better. And then, you don't like what's happening with all the gunk, so let's turn down all that mucus production. Let's turn it down, right? That's your body's way of getting rid of it. So now your body has to figure out something else, and it's just going to have to store it and bury it if it's not going to be allowed to get it out. Okay, so sickness is actually a part of health. And acute illness is what our body is so perfectly designed for. We encounter something, we respond to it, we adapt readily and appropriately, boom, we're on to the next thing. It's chronic illness that is the sign that our body is not responding properly to our environment. So I would rather have an acute illness any day, and I would rather not trade my acute illnesses for chronic illnesses, which is what we're seeing in our population. We've gotten so good at trying to address the acute illnesses that the consequence is we have more and more chronic illness. So sickness is a part of health. I want to talk about your inner car battery. Remember I said that your immune system is a very expensive system to run. It's one of the most expensive systems that we have to run in the body as far as the energy that it takes. So if you notice when you're not feeling well, right, you get that fever, you're feeling like malaise, that's because your immune system is robbing, stealing energy from your muscles and your other organs. It's just taking that energy, it's putting it all into the immune system in that moment of time. So that's why we don't feel so good. But I'll tell you that if a tiger is chasing you, your body is going to prioritize dealing with that tiger. It will shut down your immune system. So when you're stressed, that's not the time to turn the immune system on. It's too expensive. You're going to save that for when you have the resources to be able to fund it, all right, to energize it. And that's why during the red zone, when we're all stressed out, you don't necessarily get sick unless you're completely incapacitating yourself. It's after the holiday zone when we see a lot more people getting sick. I see people dropping like flies around me here with getting flu and colds and sickness. Like in the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's been much more than it was even in December, November, December, and even early January. So our inner car battery is this idea that we have this immune system and it's like a battery. And so if we, all of our energy in our body is like that car battery. And if we tax it, right, if we're not running the alternator, if the car's not running, we just turn the lights on, then we turn the radio on, then we turn the heat on, and we just keep turning things on, and there's nothing recharging that battery, it's going to drain that battery. You see? And so for our immune system to work well, we need to have a lot of energy available for it to work well. And then it can work in the background subclinically where you will never even get the sign or the symptom because it just handled it so easily. If we lower our immune resistance, that's when the viruses can come in and we don't deal with them in an easy, quick way, and they start to overload us, and then we have to bring in the big guns to deal with them. And then that's when we have a rotten experience of being sick instead of just moving through it easily. Okay, so again, you don't get sick, you do sick. And I'm going to blow your mind in a few more slides about this whole idea of the germ causing the disease, because we're all hung up on that in our culture when it may not necessarily, it's not the whole story. So you don't get sick, you do sick. And I'm around people that are sick all the time, and I'm not getting sick all the time. Did you ever, go on a plane and there's someone beside you that's all coughing and sneezing and you come off the plane and you didn't get sick, right? It's not the presence of the virus, it's the integrity of the host. Another analogy I heard long ago in chiropractic school is this idea of when you go to a dump and you see rats running around, the rats didn't just like show up out of nowhere, they were attracted to the dump, right? Do you see that? So the dump doesn't create the rats, the dump attracts the rats. So it's the same idea with the viruses and germs. Like, don't be afraid of those unless your immune system, unless your lifestyle is terrible, and then you're wide open for it. But if you can boost your immune system, then that makes you bulletproof to flu season. You can skip the flu season if you're doing the right things. Okay, so next, I want to just go into this idea of the immune system so you have a perspective on it. So we want to look at the immune system as, when we talk about boosting the immune system, really what I mean by that is balancing it. It's really about balancing the immune system. So this is a quadrant that we can look at, and so on the upper part of the quadrant is an excessive response, and then the lower part of the quadrant is a deficient response. And then we have triggers that might be internal and external. Okay, so we'll look at one quadrant at a time. So first, let's just look at this idea of getting an infection where you get overwhelmed by the infection. That would be the presence of an external virus or germ, you could say, a microbe, but your immune system has a deficient response, and so you're going to be overwhelmed by that and not have the resources you need to deal with it, and it will lead to an infection. Do you see how that works? So if you have all the resources there, you can take care of it before it ever would develop into an infection if it came in externally. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, if we look at the opposite though, if you have an over response to an external trigger, we call that an allergy. So, and we're going to be actually talking about breathing issues. Let's see, in April we'll talk about breathing issues. So we talk about allergies and so on. And so when we think about this, this is where there's a harmless trigger, pollen, animal dander, dust. It's a harmless trigger, but your body over responds to it. And that's what an allergy would be. So that's an imbalance in the immune system as well. That's that would be like a little fly comes along and you get out the bazooka or the machine gun to try and deal with it, right? As far as using the military analogy. Okay, and then if we think of just what's happening internally in our immune system, we have cells in our body that may go awry all the time. And if our body recognizes it, we take care of those cancer cells that show up now and then. But if we have a deficiency in our immune system, then internally we're not finding those aberrant cells, and we're not cleaning them up, and then they turn into a disease of cancer. So this is way, way simplified, but I just want you to get the concept of how vast the immune system is and all the jobs that it has. And then we have this situation where there's no external trigger, but our body starts to turn against ourselves. So our immune system that is going to be fighting a foreign microbe very effectively, when it starts to turn on itself and the cells in our own body, that's called an autoimmunity. Okay? So when we talk about the immune system, it is vast, it's complex, it has many jobs, and in every single case, what I'm going to be talking about of how to boost the immune system, it would address all four of these quadrants if we start moving in the right direction. So let's go forward into that now. So let's talk about this idea of health. If we think of health as though it's a fire, a bonfire, when we talk about having that energy that we need for the immune system, and think of it as a fire in your body that can fuel things or that can be applied. Your health is your bonfire. Everybody wants a bigger bonfire. That means you're healthier and healthier. So in order to have a bonfire, think of you, anybody here heat their houses with wood stoves? Okay, so you've got your pile of wood. That's the fuel. That's how you eat. You've got air that you need to be circulating in the wood stove. If you dampen it down with just a little flame, you don't have enough air to it, it just goes out, right? So air is how you move. And then the spark, you need to have a match to light that to get it going. And spark is how you think. So this is how I want you to start thinking about, what do I need to do to boost my immune system? I need to look in all three of these categories. You don't have any fire at all if you're missing any one of these. So when we talk about, it's your diet or supplements that you need, it's also you need to be moving your body. And you also need to be dealing with stress. You can't use just one of these strategies. You have to use all of them if you're really going to boost your immune system. So as we move forward now into these tips, I want you to be thinking about, what do you need to ramp up in your own life in these categories? Okay, so, and again, I want you to understand it's all progress, not perfection. It's progress, not perfection. So some of you are going to be in the freshman year, and some of you are going to be grad students here, and so you're going to just take it to the next level for yourself. Okay, so, and then recognize that with all of these strategies, it's going to be, this is how we compound our health. And so the choices we make matter, and they will accumulate. It's cumulative, and that means that when you're eating well and eating well and eating well, it keeps adding to your health, right? So people that are healthy are getting healthier. People that are sick, they're the ones that are going to be getting sicker and sicker unless they change what their lifestyle strategies are, all right? And all of this is happening over time, so time is of the essence, right? People think they have time. They don't. Not in this culture at this time, right? We need to start taking action right now. We have to create these pivot points right now to get healthy. Don't wait until the crisis happens. All right, so we're going to be going through some tips. Now, everybody loves their to-do list, but sometimes you need to have a stop doing list. So we want to think about that too. It's always easiest in the beginning to add healthy strategies than it is to try and stop bad habits. It's easier to add the good ones in, to crowd out the bad ones, rather than just trying to remove the bad ones without adding something in. So think about what you're going to add in, but keep an eye on, okay, what's the thing that I also need to start to remove and decrease? And I have a colleague that I love the way he says this. He says, there are some habits that you need to just throw out the window. They're done. They're gone. Cold turkey, stop. And then there are other habits that you have to just take down the stairs one step at a time. Little bit, little bit, little bit. So you need to decide for yourself which strategy you're going to use. Both have value. Both have value. Okay? So don't think you have to change everything immediately. That usually fails. Sometimes making the little steps is what's going to be best, but sometimes you just need to throw it out the window and just stop. Okay? And so I can help you with those strategies as well. All right, so fuel. We're going to unpack each one of these. Fuel. It's all about how you eat. Fuel is how you eat. The battle is won at the register, right? So if it gets in the house, you just know your willpower, your energy is not going to be able to resist it. So make sure that what's coming into the house are the healthy things. So think about the things you're eating. There are the required nutrients that we have that are essential. So our cells require certain vitamins and minerals and nutrients in order to function properly. They just require it. Our immune system has certain requirements of certain nutrients in order for it to function properly. And if we don't provide those building blocks, then our immune system is going to be at a loss. So required nutrients, essential nutrients. Essential nutrients can be thought of as the things that our body cannot make itself. And yet, if we provide the right combinations of food, we actually, in our own gut, can make nutrients as well. So our gut, the flora in our gut, can make some of the nutrients for us, but we have to feed that flora as well. So you always want to be thinking of whole foods because they're going to be loaded with nutrients. The processed foods are going to be deficient. Not only are the processed foods going to be deficient, but they may also be toxic. So start to think about, there's two sides of the equation here. There's toxins and deficiencies. So if you're eating junk food, not only is it deficient, it may have toxins as well, but it's also taking the place of the healthy food that you would have eaten otherwise. So processed junk food has a double whammy because it's taking the place of the healthy food. And so recognize that if you are putting toxic foods in, that creates an additional burden to your body that it has to manage. And so again, it's taxing and taxing and taxing our immune system, which is part of our immune system is detoxing the body. And if we just keep loading more toxins in, then we don't get the chance to let things go and let our bodies just have a load taken off of them, a burden taken off. All right, so the Bonfire Correct diet is going to be unlimited vegetables, as many as you want. So when you're thinking about what can I add in, that's one of the simplest things to do is just add more vegetables. And you can add them in I just saw a scowl in my audience. Yeah, I hate vegetables, right? So there are ways you can sneak them in. So you can sneak them into smoothies and juicing that way, or soups. I find soups are one of the best ways to get vegetables in. And then you want to have abundant, lean, and natural meats. So get the meats from the healthy animals. It's less of a burden to your body if you're doing that. And then you can have some fruits, nuts, and seeds. And then you're going to have very limited starch and no sugar. So where does this Bonfire Correct diet comes from? It comes from, genetically speaking, 40,000 years ago. It's what our cells were designed for. And our genes have not changed in 40,000 years. So our cells were designed to have this as the required essential nutrients. This is what we required for our bodies to be healthy. This is the basics. So you want to get this in first. So if you're missing any of these things, start adding these in. And then you can actually make some shifts too. So Sometimes if people are concerned about costs and the idea of organic or inorganic, and the organic seems to be more expensive, I want you to remember that the meats are where things are going to be more concentrated. They're the end of the food chain. And so I want you to choose the healthiest meats that you can at the end of the food chain. And you can be more lenient with the fruits and the vegetables not necessarily being organic. There is a list of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So the Dirty Dozen are and it's on my website. If you go to the wellness resources, there's a link to, it's the Environmental Working Group is the organization that creates this list. And they have the Dirty Dozen are the most pesticides, most toxic chemicals on them for fruits and vegetables. So really try to make sure those are organic. Otherwise, the Clean 15 are ones that have very little toxins on them. So you don't have to get the organic with those. So you can be economizing that way. Okay. This is a very simple way for you to think about how you're going to be eating. So with every meal that you eat, you want to ask yourself, where's the plant, where's the healthy protein, and where's the healthy fat? Where's the plants, where's the fat, and where's the protein? Everything that you eat. So if you're having a snack, you're still going to ask that question of where's the plant, where's the healthy fat, where's the healthy protein? And can we just clarify, as I did last month, the difference between snacks and treats? Snacks are always healthy. Snacks are not the main meal. They may be in between meals, but they're always healthy. They're things you eat regularly. They're always healthy. Treats are what come after you've put all the healthy things in, and it's occasional. Okay, a treat is occasional. Okay, do we get that right? The difference between snacks and treats. Okay, all right, so use this idea. And so if you see how this plate is set up, this much of the plate is going to be the fruits and the vegetables. And then that much of the plate is the fat, and this much is the protein. Okay, so just think of it visually when you're creating your plate of food for the snack or the meal. All right, here are the do's and the don'ts. So the non-starchy vegetables are going to be the healthier choice. Some fruit, but not too much fruit. The best ratio is going to be, for every serving of fruit, you're going to have 4 servings of vegetables. Okay, so if you love the fruit, go for it, but make sure you're following the rule that, okay, if I want that additional piece of fruit, I'm going to have 4 more servings of vegetables. And what's a serving of vegetable? It's what's can fit in your hand. Okay, that's what a serving is, what fits in your hand. Meat, poultry, and fish, again, get the healthy versions of those. The range-fed eggs, so the pastured eggs. The natural fats, those are the healthy ones, the natural ones. Some nuts and seeds, and then drinking water. That's what we are set up for. That's what we're designed for. That's what our genes and our cells demand of us.
Can you give an example of natural fats?
Natural fats would be fats from healthy animals, would be an example. Fats from nuts, olive oil, coconut oil, avocados are a great source of healthy fats, yep. And then we can look at on the other side, the don'ts. So it's the refined carbohydrates that are the problem. The fruits and the vegetables are great sources of carbohydrates. Those are the healthy ones. It's the refined carbohydrates like the white foods, the white sugar, the white flour, right? Cereals and grains are a don't, but if you are going to do them, you want to choose the ancient ones, like amaranth and spelt, and rice could be in that category as well. So the anti-inflammatory diet has on, whoops, that's not it, here. It has on it what the ancient grains are: amaranth, spelt, barley, oatmeal, quinoa, basmati or brown rice, buckwheat, rye. Those are some of the examples of them. And for some people, they're going to restrict that. But if you are going to do it, choose the ancient grains. That's your first, like if you're a freshman on this and you're eating the refined carbohydrates, your first step is to replace them with the ancient grains. The sweeteners, again, don't want to do the sweeteners, but if you are going to do them, choose the healthy ones. So that would be the natural ones like honey, like maple syrup, like palm sugar, coconut palm sugar. Stevia is a good one. And then there are some other ones, monk fruit, or otherwise known as lohan. So there's other ones that are out there that are the healthy versions of that. Now the bad vegetable oils are, again, the ones that you don't want to do. So it does not include olive oil, avocado oil, palm, and coconut oils. Those are the good, healthy oils, right? But all the other ones, canola, corn oil, vegetable oil, right? You just want to avoid those. They're so inflammatory, okay? Dairy products are not recommended, especially if your immune system is being challenged. So this is if you want to boost your immune system in 21 days, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to avoid these things, okay? Now, dairy can have some value from healthy animals, especially if it's fermented or like yogurt and kefir, that sort of thing, and raw dairy products, but definitely avoid any of the processed dairy products that have been heated. Avoid that, like the ones that have been homogenized, and like that process actually breaks them down and makes them unhealthy. And then we have avoiding the soda, the juice, and the alcohols. And again, I just want to talk about sugar and immunity. So sugar and vitamin C are very similar in the receptor sites that they use to get into the cell. So every time that you have vitamin C that needs to get into the immune system cell, it has to go to the cell membrane and be recognized by the receptor site, and that's the doorway of how it gets into the cell. And then we use it inside the cell for that immune system cell to work right. On our cell membranes, the receptor site for sugar and for vitamin C are almost identical. And because our brain can get fueled very fast with sugar, the cell membrane will always prioritize the sugar. And so that means that if you have a teaspoon of sugar, it tanks your immune system for 45 minutes. 1 teaspoon of sugar tanks your immune system for 45 minutes. So you gotta look closely at that. You gotta look closely at sugar. It's everywhere in our culture. It is so normalized. It's scary how normalized it is. And people talk about sugar in moderation. If you want to boost your immune system in 21 days, that's one you're going to be throw out the window. Just stop that, right? Because that immediately tanks your immune system. So when you think of supplements now, think about it this way. We can use supplements to reconcile the deficiencies that we have. And there are wellness supplements that we just need because our culture doesn't provide in our diets what we really need. And so sometimes we need extra help. So this idea of reconciling the deficiencies, just remember that we know now from studies that 2 peaches 50 years ago provided so much nutritional value that today, to get that same nutritional value, you would have to eat 50 peaches. And that's because the soil that our food is grown in is no longer nutrient dense. We've really wiped out our topsoils. So they don't have the nutrients they were meant to originally have. And so the food that we're eating, it just doesn't have the concentration of nutrients that it would have had, especially 40,000 years ago. So our bodies are designed to eat that peach and thinking that it's getting all this good nutrition, and it's actually not even getting it from it. And we know that there are other factors like living in Vermont in the winter. We don't get vitamin D from the sun in the winter, and vitamin D is a required nutrient for 6,000 different reactions in our body. So we have this amazing modern world where we actually can take a little pill and it can help us to reconcile the deficiencies. Is your best vitamin D going to come from the sun? Absolutely. And if you're in Vermont, you're not going to get it. So you can try to get it from foods. There are certain foods that'll have it. Cod liver oil. So go ahead, get your vitamin D from cod liver oil. That's an awesome place. Fatty, oily fish, that's a great place to get vitamin D. Certain mushrooms, like shiitake mushrooms, I think, are the ones that have they have to be dehydrated a certain way, but they have some vitamin D in them. But other than that, you better be supplementing. I've never met a Vermonter that wasn't supplementing with vitamin D that had healthy levels. So we're going to talk about which ones, but we need to reconcile the deficiencies that are inherent in our culture. And so let me just say something about that idea of when I talk about you don't get sick, you do sick, please recognize our entire culture is doing sick. And we're being impacted by our whole culture doing sick. If you add on top of that you're not even making the right lifestyle choices, it's just worse and worse. So our culture is doing sick. That's why we have to reconcile the deficiencies in the appropriate way. So we have to use our smart brains to do that. And wellness supplements, we're going to go over that. And then if you need extra help of boosting or bridging until you get your lifestyle choices so that they're at that high level. So what supplements? These are fantastic, and this is more for when we talk about colds and flu, that part of the immune system. These are the things that are great for this time of the year. So garlic, elderberry, echinacea, ginger, ginseng, andrographis. That's one I recommend a lot of, and it's a wonderful herb. Conjuplex is the building blocks for the thymus gland, and the thymus gland shrinks in adults. And so even for kids, but for adults as well, you put some Conjuplex in and all of a sudden that thymus gland gets robust, and that's one of the major immune system organs. Immuplex and Epiimmune are just other varieties that I will test people on to see what's best for them. Epiimmune actually has a lot of the healthy mushrooms in it. And then we look at Wo oil. It's a Chinese healing oil. That's fabulous for just knocking things out. And then On Guard is a essential oil, doTERRA essential oil. So that comes from a ancient formula that was used by thieves that were looting homes of people that had the Black Plague. So in the Middle Ages, when the Black Plague came along and people were dying or dead and it was so contagious, these people would use these essential oils and they would protect them, and they'd be able to go in and steal. And it was called thieves oil. Yeah, thieves oil, yeah. So On Guard is that formula of essential oils. And then myrrh is a very potent essential oil, but also a supplement that we have. So if you just really need to pull out the big guns, myrrh is amazing for that. All right, and so for supplements, there's some other ones that I want to talk about colloidal silver because I know that people oftentimes ask me about that. Colloidal silver, silver is a heavy metal. And so I'm on the fence about this. I think colloidal silver is something good for wounds or topical on the outside, for skin, that sort of thing. But I'm not sure it's a good idea for taking internally because it's hard to remove it's a heavy metal. Silver is a heavy metal, so it's hard to get it out of our bodies. So certain people are going to be okay with it, but some people that have trouble removing toxins, I wouldn't go with colloidal silver for that. But then again, just reinforcing garlic, elderberry, echinacea, ginger, ginseng, those are some good ones. All right, so now we talk about air, how you move. Movement is also a required nutrient. Our cells were designed to move, so we need to be moving in order to be healthy. We have this convenient culture now where we can just sit all day long, right? In 40,000 years ago, if you weren't moving, you weren't eating, right? You were being eaten if you weren't moving, right? And so our bodies were designed to combine acquiring energy, which means acquiring food, with movement. We had to move in order to get food. And so our cells are designed that we need to be moving if we're going to be eating. And if we're not moving, then eating can become actually an overload and toxic to us. Like imagine 40,000 years ago, you wouldn't drive up and have food thrown in at you or through a window. Like that didn't exist. Like we can sit in our houses sedentary all day long and call on the phone and have food delivered to us. That is the day and age that we live in. It's extraordinary, but it's killing us. That sedentary lifestyle is killing us. Sitting is the new smoking, as they say. So movement is a required nutrient. It helps us to turn the stress switch off. And it helps us when we turn the stress switch off, it allows the immune system to then be able to rev up. So movement is key for that. When you're recovering from being sick, however, your body is still using the immune system, so it's still drawing resources. You want to rest. So you don't want to go and work out if your immune system is active. You need to be resting at that time. So that's the difference. So boosting your immune system, if you're sick right now, you want to be resting, getting as much sleep as you can get. But if you're not experiencing sick symptoms, right, if you don't get that body signal right now, then you want to start boosting your immune system by moving more. And on my website, I have the 4-minute workout. It's an awesome tool to use. In 4 minutes, you do that a few times a day, and you actually are boosting up your mitochondria, your energy in your body, and you're helping to move lymph through your body, which is how we get rid of toxins. So it really boosts your immune system to just add bursts of energy, bursts of exercise, not going for a long haul run, not going to the gym and working out a long time. But if you're new to it, the 4-minute workout is the best way to do it. And if you're busy or you're traveling, no excuses, you still want to move. So the 4-minute workout is the way that you can still get your movement in. All right, so for exercise, remember it's a required nutrient, and it's one of the things that will help to reboot our hormones. So when we are stressed, our nervous system is working with our immune system, and the nervous system actually will prioritize, is the immune system going to be turned on now or not? So it's a neuroimmune system that allows us to deal with microbes and so on. If our nervous system is saying we're in stress right now, we will shut down the immune system. So, and that means we're going to, who knows what the stress hormone is? The stress hormone, cortisol is the stress hormone. So we've heard that word, cortisol. Cortisol has value to us. It's what gets us active. So in our cycles, the natural circadian rhythms of the day, there's times of the day when cortisol goes up. That's what gets us up and gets us going. And then there's times when cortisol drops back down. That's what allows the melatonin to come in so that we can sleep. So if we're stressed out, we're not sleeping because the cortisol is staying high because you're still feeling like there's a tiger that you need to fight. So if we're not getting good sleep, then our immune system is going to get taxed. We don't have the energy that we need. So to reboot the hormones, you need to exercise or have deep sleep. Those are the two things that will reset our hormones, turn that stress switch off. The movement with exercise also is going to pump the lymphatic system. So you have your blood circulatory system that actually has a charge that keeps that blood moving through. And then you have your lymph fluid, which is where you dump toxins into the lymph vessels. But the lymph vessels, they only have valves. They don't have anything that's pushing it through. And so the thing that pushes things through the lymphatic system is when the muscles contract, it squishes the lymphatic vessels, and since there are valves, it pushes it in one direction. And so that's how we can pump the lymph through our body to get it out of our body, is through movement, exercise, circulation. All right, so for exercise, if you are fighting something, don't move. Rest. If you're fighting something, you need to rest. Sleep needs to trump everything. If you're not getting enough sleep, that's the first thing you need to do for your immune system. We're going to talk about sleep in a minute. Yeah. Listen to your body and look at the timing of when you're going to be moving. So you don't ever want to trade off sleep for exercise. You want to get the good sleep and then carve out the time for the exercise. Do the 4-minute workout as your way to do that if you're busy. All right, so sleep, do this. We need to be shooting for 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That's our regular. If you're fighting something, you want to go for more than that. Go for more sleep. You want to have an e-fast before you sleep. That means turn off the devices, turn off the screens. 60 minutes before you go to bed, turn those screens off. If your immune system is fighting something, 90 minutes before you go to bed. And then napping is awesome. Napping is another way to just have a little reset during the day. If things are getting stressed out, you take a nap. That's a way to reset. So it turns the stress switch off. And especially, again, if you're fighting something, naps are a fantastic way to just help you to get through that in the easiest way. All right, spark is how you think. That's our thought life. And so we want to look at if our thoughts are stressful, it's going to increase the stress hormones. That's going to then turn off the immune system. And we want to recognize that we want to set healing rhythms for ourselves, for our day. So the circadian rhythms are the rhythms of our 24-hour clock. And we want to set up rhythms in our day that are healthy. So what that means is, as far as how you think, in the morning when you wake up, what kind of a rhythm or a habit do you have? What kind of a ritual do you have that's going to start your day in a way that's going to help you turn the stress switch off from the beginning? Like, how many people, I don't have my phone here, but this is what happens to a lot of people, their alarm clock is their phone. The alarm goes off, they turn the phone in, and then they start to look at the emails and the text messages and the Facebook, and they start to get stressed out. From the beginning of their day, they start to get stressed out. The news feed and everything, right? Just be really conscious about that. Like, if you're going to be looking at Facebook, I want you to join our Facebook group, and I want you to turn on the button that says, I want to see this thing first, because we have awesome posts on our Facebook page that are inspirational, that are going to set the tone for your day. So check that button that says, see this first, right? And then in your feed, you're going to be feeding yourself. You're going to set a healing rhythm. Maybe the first thing you do is you start a habit of, when you get out of bed, the minute that your feet hit the floor, you're thinking about what you're grateful for. Or maybe that's the way you're ending your day. So having a healing rhythm to your day is a good way to help to turn the stress switch off. Just consciously adding in things that are going to be of a healing nature. Connecting with friends and that sort of thing as well. All right, now there's this curious example of Masha and Dasha. Who's ever heard about Masha and Dasha? Anybody? Yep, some of you have. Okay. So Masha and Dasha were a set of Siamese twins that were born in the Soviet Union, Russia at the time. And they were joined at the hip, just like this. They were joined at the hip. So they shared a hips, but they had their own torsos coming up out of that. Okay? And they actually had one controlled one leg and the other one controlled the other leg. They were 5 years old before they learned how to walk, because they had to coordinate who was going to get one leg to go and who was going to get the other leg to go. So these sisters, what was so interesting about it is that one of them got the measles and the other one didn't. One of them would get a cold or the flu and the other one didn't. They shared a bloodstream. That meant that if there was any virus or microorganism, it was in both of their bloodstreams. But one of them would get the disease of the childhood disease or the cold or the flu, and the other one wouldn't. One of them seemed to get cold and flu more often than the other. So what was different between them? They shared the bloodstream. Their immune system would have been doing the same thing, except there was something that was different. And so what was the difference between the two of them? Their central nervous systems were different. They had their own brains and spines. And remember, didn't we say that it was the nervous system that determined whether the immune system would get turned on or off? So it's not necessarily the presence of the virus that determines whether you're going to get sick or not. You don't get sick, you do sick. One of them was a little bit more cocked off to the side, probably had a little bit more stress in their nervous system, more subluxations in their system that could be affecting how their organs were functioning. Fascinating. When would we ever have the chance to understand things except from them, right? It was amazing the gift it was from learning from them. So we need a new premise. We can't use that old premise of it's bad germs or bad genes or bad luck. We need a new premise. And we can't rely on how you feel to determine how healthy you are. So healthy is normal is the first, there are 5 things on my list here. Healthy is normal is the first premise that I want to be working from. Our bodies were designed to be healthy. Our bodies are smart. So are we going to interfere with our bodies, or are we going to let our bodies express that health? Our bodies are smart. The nervous system is the master system in the body, and our spine is our suit of armor that protects the nervous system. And modern life, it's stressful. It is. We have engineered a culture that is so stressful. Can we all agree that do we have a healthy nation or a sick nation? Sick. We've got a sick nation, not just the flu either, right? So, and that's because our modern life is unnaturally stressful. And so what happens when we are stressed? Watch what happens. Our blood pressure is going to go up, our heart rate's going to go up, muscle tone goes up. So this is all why. This is so that we can fight the tiger. This is the perfect design that we have. The tiger shows up and our blood pressure goes up so that we can get ready to run and get that blood out to the muscles. The heart rate goes up to pump that blood. The muscle tone goes up. We're ready to fight. Digestion is going to be upset. At first it speeds up so you can get things out, right? You know what I mean by that, right? And then it's going to slow down because it's not the time to be putting energy into digestion when you have to fight the tiger. Serotonin is going to be decreased. Not a good time to sleep when there's a tiger around. Our sensory systems are going to be up. Our antennae are up, watching out there externally, watching for the threat. Fear and anxiety are going to be up. Our immune response gets down-regulated because we need to save it for later, because if the tiger injures us, we got to have that immune system ready to go later, but not while the tiger is chasing us. Our insulin sensitivity also will change because we actually want higher blood sugar when we need to fuel and run as fast as we can. So we're going to actually have that insulin go upside down and our blood sugar is going to go up because it will be a benefit if a tiger is chasing us. The LDLs are going to be also upside down. So and that's going to happen because we want to have the lipids available for repair. If we get a wound, we want to be able to repair. So the LDLs that are bad are actually good for repairing wounds. And also we need the fats to create the cortisol. To create the stress hormones, we need these fats. So if the cortisol is up, we need more fats available in order to create that. Our clotting factors are going to go up as well because if we do get a wound, we want it to clot fast. And not a good time to make babies when the tiger's chasing you. So we can see this is what happens in a stress response. And it's perfect if there really is a tiger out to get you. If it's a real life threat, this is a perfect design. This will save our life. But we were only meant to have this going on for a short periods of time and very occasionally. We were never meant to have this ongoing the way we have it in our culture, the way our culture has been engineered. Never meant to have it be ongoing. And so the result is that these stresses that we have are creating the stress response. So what are the sources of these stresses? It's thoughts, toxins, and traumas. So let's look at these here. So when we think of the macro traumas that we are exposed to, those are the big jolts. Like when I took that flying leap and landed right on my hip, that was a macro trauma, right? But these are few and far in between, and these are not the major source of disturbance and stress in our system. Actually, it's the micro traumas that are the biggest threat to us. And this new generation that's coming, they've got trouble because of the micro traumas that are coming from using devices all day long. It's affecting their posture, and if it affects their posture, it's affecting their spine. If it's affecting their spine, it's affecting their nervous system. If it's affecting their nervous system, it's affecting their immune system. So the micro traumas are really a problem. In fact, when we were at the basketball tournament, we were on a bus, and there was another school that was next to us on the bus. I looked on the bus, every seat. This is what I saw. The heads were down there on their devices. Yeah, at the Waldorf school, they didn't allow that. There was just very segmented periods of time with the devices. So we really have to pay attention to it. And so our spine, our posture, is really going to impact our nervous system, which will impact our immune system. The spine is our suit of armor. The vertebrae are acting like a suit of armor that protects the delicate nerves that send messages to every part of the body. So we have our spine here, and the nerves are coming out from between the bones. And so if we misalign the vertebrae, twisting or torquing, jarring the spine, we can get the misalignments that then are going to create interference in the nervous system. You got a good view of that? Okay. I was thinking of going right up to you, but then it would be blurry, wouldn't it? All right, so suit of armor is the key. And so when we have subluxations, right, subluxations are when the vertebrae misalign, and it can affect the discs. And if the discs are affected in different ways, this is the hole, this is the opening where the nerve comes through. And so you can have a healthy disc with lots of space, lots of room for that nerve to breathe as it comes out. But then you can have degenerated discs, you can have bulging discs, herniated discs, we have thinning discs, and we have degenerated discs. All of these can affect the nerves. When there is misalignment of the vertebrae, there's tissue damage that occurs. And that tissue damage becomes inflamed, creates swelling, and your smart body is going to then take that joint, it's going to strap it down. It's going to try to stop the movement in that joint if it's misaligned, because that every time it moves, it's irritating the nerve more and more. So your smart body is going to spasm that muscle to strap that joint down to stop the movement. When you stop the movement, the discs are going to deteriorate over time because they require movement to squeeze the toxins out and to suck the nutrients in, just like a sponge. And so that's what's going to cause the deterioration in the disc, the loss of the imbibition it's called. And that joint fixation, when that joint is strapped down, the signaling that goes to the brain from a strapped down joint is a stress signal. The brain is saying, I'm used to having good movement there, and right now there's not good movement because it's being irritated, and it sends a stress response which puts the entire body into a stress response. So the subluxations will actually cause a stress response, and we know what happens to the immune system when we have a stress response. So not only did I have the jarring of my spine when I fell on the floor, but it created subluxations, misalignments. I felt okay. I didn't have pain in my back and pain in my neck, but the jarring creates the subluxation. Just like a cavity, you don't necessarily feel the subluxation. And so I had to make sure I got adjusted, which then turns the stress switch off in my body, which had been turned on. And then what did I do? I added on top of that, cold for 8 hours. What happens when you're cold? Your body gets tense, doesn't it? And when you tense up, you stop the lymphatic flow, you lower circulation, and so it's a stress to the body as well. It's a physical stress to the body. So all those things then elevate the stress hormones, and then we know what happens to the immune system when the stress hormones are elevated. And so the subluxation causes nerve irritation and interference in your body's innate ability to heal and remain healthy. That's what happens with subluxations. And so we have this fuse box, right? The spine is the fuse box, and if you have subluxations, those wires are the nerves that go to different rooms in the house or different organ systems. And so you may have immune system organs that are being interfered with because they're not getting the proper nerve supply. So for example, in this area here, that's the nerve supply to the lungs, to the thymus gland that lives right here. You've got the immune system that goes to the lymph and the tonsils up in here. You've got the immune system that goes to the spleen, the nervous system that goes to the spleen, which is another immune organ, right? And then we even have the nervous system that goes to the bone marrow, where we create white blood cells. So the research shows that when you interfere with the nerve supply to these immune organs, they don't work as well. So there's that factor. And then there's the overall stress response that comes from subluxations that then again will affect the immune system. So how would you know if you had a subluxation? Like I just said, it's silent. You don't know. It's like a cavity. You don't know. So the only way you know is we have to measure it. And so in our office we use palpation, feeling the vertebrae. Remember, if it gets strapped down, it's not going to move as well. So feeling the motion in the joint. Static palpation is feeling the actual misalignment of the vertebrae. Posture is a fantastic way to measure what's happening in the body. So the posture is the window to the spine. So we use a posture analysis, and the instrumentation we use in the office, looking at the rolling thermal scan, the nerve supply to the organs, the nerve supply to the muscles, the HRV, it tells us if you're in stress mode or not. So we use all that technology that the astronauts use to measure their health. And we use that to identify where the subluxations are and how your body is getting healthier and healthier. It's so exciting to me to see somebody that has scans that show a lot of red on them, right? A lot of disturbance. And then as they get adjusted, they start to get healthier and healthier. And what do they report? That their immune system's getting healthier as well. And so that correlates. We see that correlating. And in fact, I'm going to show you a research study that shows that too. So getting adjusted for recovery is part of your strategy. So if you're sick, that's not when you stay home. That's when you come in and get extra adjustments when you're sick. So many people call up, I'm sick, I can't come in, I got to cancel my appointment. No, come in and add an extra appointment, right? When you're sick, you want to add extra adjustments. You want to break the bad habits, and you want to do your exercises. So remember, it's a 3-legged stool, adjustments in a rhythm, or adding extra when you need it, doing your spinal care exercises, and then breaking the bad habits of how you eat, how you move, and how you think. All right, and so if you're already sick, what can you do about that? Rest, really important. Just stop the exercise. It's just a moment, it's just for a short period of time until you get healthy again, meaning until you get your immune system back up to speed again. It's working hard right now, so you want to rest. Sleep as much as possible. Get extra adjustments. Try to limit or avoid stressful situations. No sugar. And just drink good, pure water. Eat simple, nutrient-dense foods. Bone broth is an awesome food to eat when you're sick. And just the bone broth and soup, veggie-based smoothies. So not the sugar bomb smoothies that are all fruit. Nope, that's going to get you into trouble. So you want to make sure that you're doing the veggie. Throw some green into those. Throw some spinach in, that sort of thing. And then use the supplementation that you need, and just give your body time and take action by giving your body time. So the action you want to take may be a stop doing list, right? Saying no. No is a love word. This was just showed up on my Facebook page just recently. Someone commenting when I was doing some of the videos about the immune system. Bella says, I wish I was still local. She actually has moved away, but while she was here, she loved the care that she got. And so she was just saying that she had an ear infection that wouldn't go away. And even after 2 rounds of antibiotics, it still wouldn't go away. And finally, her naturopath suggested she try chiropractic. And so she found us. And not only did she heal the ear infection, but she saw how her posture improved, and her immune system, she says, went up to 100%. So she felt that robustness come right back. And also we helped her son with his scoliosis and correcting that. And also just she really appreciated how we instilled a healthy awareness with her son that really served him as he was growing up. He was just a little boy when he was here, but he was echoing what we were teaching. So he was learning from us as well. So I wanted to go over chiropractic and ecogenetic toxins. I'm going to stand over here for this one. So when you have toxins from the environment, one of the things that we know happens with chiropractic care, studies show that it actually helps to repair cell damage. So if we have damage that comes in, it helps to repair that damage. It also helps to repair genetic mutations. That's one of the things that the immune system does, is that if you have DNA or genes that get damaged, when they make the next cell, it's not going to be as good because it's copying something that's damaged. And so it's like making a copy of something and making a copy of a copy and a copy of a copy, and after a while it gets blurry and it's not good quality. I mean, in the old days, the Xerox machines, do you remember that? Like a Xerox, a copy of a Xerox of a copy, it was not very good. So when your DNA is damaged and doesn't repair itself, it means that the next cells that it's going to make, the blueprint is not as good. And so the cell is not going to be as good quality. So our body has the ability to repair DNA, and we have ways of measuring that. There's actually substances that we can measure. If that substance is present, then we know we're doing a good job at repairing our DNA. So this study, what they did is there was a fellow, and he was an ecogenetic toxicologist. Dr. Ronald Perot is his name, and he would study people, and he would look at what environment did they live in, what did their genetic makeup show, and he could predict what kind of cancer they were going to get just from what toxins they were exposed to from the lifestyle they were leading and what their genetic predisposition was. And so he figured out how to measure how well they were repairing their DNA and that sort of thing, and he could determine if he could predict if they were going to be having certain cancers. And so part of the body's ability to deal with environmental toxins and how they could affect our DNA is how well they repaired the cell, how well they repaired the DNA, and how well they resisted a hazardous environment and oxidative stress that would come from that. And so what he found is that he had three groups of people. He had people that were very sick, had serious chronic illnesses. He had another group of people that were healthy, meaning they didn't have these chronic diseases. And then he had people that were under chiropractic care. And when he measured all of them and their ability to do these things, the people that were sick had the lowest ability to repair their DNA and deal with the hazardous toxins in the environment and deal with the oxidative stress. The people that were healthy, they had 200% better immune system function than the people that were chronically ill. But the surprising thing was the people that were under chiropractic care had 400% better immune system function than the chronically ill folks. And when he looked at these two groups, the only difference between these two groups were one of them had regular chiropractic care, meaning they got adjusted for more than 6 months, and it was wellness care. It wasn't just for a few adjustments for a bad back. They were using chiropractic care as a wellness protocol. And so he found that they had 4 times the immune system function than other people, and even double what would have been called healthy people. And what was interesting is he started this branch of his study because there were some chiropractors that heard about this part of his study, and they said, hey, test us. And he's like, okay, I'll test you. And then when he got the results, he thought there was a mistake because he couldn't believe that the results were coming out the way they were. Like, these people should have had a certain kind of cancer at that point, and they didn't. And so he repeated it over and over, and he kept finding the same results. And that spurred him to have a separate branch of his research looking at just people that were under chiropractic care. And then he did the study again, and my dad was actually part of the second study where they looked at the same results again, and he found the same results. So he was so impressed that he actually devoted some of his research into looking into chiropractic care and how it affects the immune system. And so we find then the studies are showing that just chiropractic care alone actually increases serum thiol, which is one of the enzymes present when we're really good at repairing our DNA. Who would have thought that chiropractic care would help you repair your DNA, right? Who would have thought that? But that's what the studies show. And if you're repairing your DNA, that's called anti-aging, right? If your DNA is not repairing, you're aging. If you're repairing your DNA, now that's what true anti-aging is, not just a nice cream you put on your face. So who would have thought chiropractic care could do that? And so it literally can impact the immune system that way. 2 times and 4 times, there it is. And that was the other thing, is they found that oftentimes people think that immune system function is the robustness, the capacity is going to decrease with age. And in the chiropractic group, there was no decrease with age. Even up to the mid-80s, 80 years old, there was no change in the immune system function if they were under chiropractic care. That's what healthy normal is. Healthy is normal. So if you are not sure whether you have subluxations, you're going to need to find out. And so getting checked by a chiropractor is the only way to find out whether you have subluxations and whether that could be affecting your immune system. So if you want to boost your immune system in 21 days, you've got lots of things that you can do. We've talked about them. Think about what your action steps are. And if you have not had your spine checked, that should be one of the things on your action steps. And if I can help you with that, I'm happy to. Just call us up. Let us know how we can help. And don't put it off, right? Procrastination is the thief of health. That's what we say. And so don't put it off. Get your spine checked as soon as you can and find out whether that might be affecting your health. Thank you so much for your time and attention this evening. And I look forward to sharing more with you next month when we will talk about bulletproofing your low back.